that he knows what he's what?
Doing.
We really don't.
Aldo, can I just interject with something? I do agree with what you're saying, but I also sometimes think that you can be faithful and trust God, but because we minimize the love that God has for us as individuals, I love Lois, I love Brother Elijah. We believe that he's forgotten about us. So it's not necessarily that we don't trust God in his wisdom, but we think we've been forgotten about, that God's blessings aren't necessarily for you. And it's to trust that God's word is absolute, that if we trust in him, that the blessings are for you.
Mm-hmm. So what I want us to do is, always know that he is working in your behalf, my dear sister, and he'll map out and he'll open your eyes to what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. You keep that before him. Lord, you are impressing me to do this. Now you don't have to be anxious. You don't have to be impulsive. You just says, okay, Lord, show me the next step. He'll show you the next step and the next step and the next step. And when he does what he does, he wants it to be a blessing, not only to you, but to the people that you're around right now, because he wants to use you in such a way that that you present a beautiful message to them about showing them how someone allows God to lead them in their steps and in what they want to do. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much. God bless.
Now, remember, I want us to go back when we were dealing with the Sabbath and the Sabbath issue. I want us to go over here to Revelation, the 16th chapter, verse 12, 13, 14, and 15, and 16. And I want us to tie this in with the feet of the iron and the feet of the clay. And I want you to see something. This here is directly associated with the feet of the iron and the clay, okay? Could you read Revelation 16, verse 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16? Could someone read this?
And the sixth angel poured out his vial upon the great river Euphrates, and the water thereof was dried up, that the way of the kings of the east might be prepared. And I saw 3 unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. And they are the spirits of devils, working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world, to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty. Behold, I come as a thief. Blessed is he that watcheth and keepeth his garments, lest he walk naked and they see his shame. And he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue, Armageddon.
Okay, now I'd like for us to go back now, realizing that in verse 12, the sixth angel, this is talking about the time in which we're living under. We're living under the time of the sixth angel. Now, notice what it says in the next verse. It says, and I saw 3 what?
Unclean spirits.
Keep reading.
Like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth.
Now, what is the frogs associated with? When you think about frogs in the Bible, what does frogs take your mind back to?
Legs. To the plague.
To the plagues.
Exodus.
The plagues.
Mhm.
Yeah, to the plagues in Egypt. So God is letting us know. Now, the next thing, since we know that the sixth angel is talking about our time, now keep reading here.
And out of the mouth of the beast and out of the mouth of the false prophet.
Okay,
For
now
they
who
are
is now the next thing you have to make a decision here. And I saw three unclean spirits come out of the mouth of the dragon. Now, according to the spirit of prophecy, the word mouth represents what in the Bible, in Bible prophecy?
Laws, legislative laws.
Okay, let's go over here. I want you to read what it says in the book Great Controversy. What it says here. Go over here to page 44. Okay. Go to page 440, 441.
441.
Yeah, 41.2. Now, Revelation 16 that you're reading here is directly associated with page 441.2. But the beast with lamb-like horns speaks as a what?
Dragon.
Now, this has to do with Daniel 2 with the feet of the iron and clay. The clay represents God's people. The iron will represent, it takes you back to the pagan Roman Empire. And notice in Revelation 12:1, the spirit of prophecy 12:3 tells us that the dragon can represent Satan, or it can represent paganism of the pagan Roman Empire and what they did. Now, I'd like for you to read something on Great Controversy, page 441.2. But the beast with the lamb-like horns, which we know to be America. And I want us to see here how the role that America is going to play and the attributes that America is going to take on. Go here to, but the dragon with the lamb-like horns spake as a what? Because someone read that. You have it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead and read it.
Yeah.
But the beast with lamb-like horns spake as a dragon.
Now,
And
when
he
it says
exercised.
spake as a dragon, now notice it
Mhm.
explains what speaking or the mouth has to do with. Go ahead.
And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed, saying to them that dwell on the earth, that they should make an image to the beast, which has the wound by a sword and did live.
Okay, now when it says saying to them that dwell on the earth, now I want you to notice, go over here in Revelation 16:14, a verse you read here. For they are spirits of what?
For they are the spirits of devils working miracles, which go forth unto the kings of the earth and of the whole world,
And
to gather them to the battle of that great day of God Almighty.
Notice here, I always assumed that the world and the earth was synonymous. It meant the same thing. But notice in this verse, it says to the kings of the what?
Of the earth.
And to the what?
And of the whole world.
So the world and the earth are not to be thought of as one and the what?
Same.
Okay, so what is the earth the kings of the earth talking about?
Is the kings of the earth relating to the fallen angels? Because Lucifer is, no?
No, Lucifer is never called a king. He's always called a prince.
Okay.
Now, according to the Bible, in the Bible prophecy, starting with Revelation, the 12th chapter, the symbol earth always refers to what? What location?
North America.
It always refers to North America.
Okay.
Go back there to Revelation 13:11. And I saw what?
And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon.
So the earth is talking about issues that are going on here in America, in North America, okay?
Right.
So whatever happens here in North America will influence the whole what?
World.
The whole world. This is what Revelation is talking about. Something going to happen here in America, and that event or that what is going to happen here is going to influence the rest of the
World.
world. Okay. So do we understand that concept?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Bible prophecy and in the spirit of prophecy, you have been given you two issues dealing with the dragon. We know that the dragon represents ancient Rome and how they dealt with God's people. See, it was through the Roman Empire that they persecuted and put the people to death, remember? Okay. Now keep on reading what Great Controversy says there.
The lamb-like horns and dragon voice of the symbol point to a striking contradiction between the professions and the practice of the nation thus represented. The speaking of the nation is the action of its legislative and judicial authorities.
All right. So the mouth in Bible prophecy has to do with what?
Legislative and judicial authorities.
All right. So it's letting you know that this country is going to pass certain what?
Laws.
And the judicial branch
Authorities will support it.
will support it. And with the judicial branch comes the law enforcement department, the police, the FBI, all of these, they come under the judicial authority. Mm-hmm. And it says, whatever is going to happen here in America, that the other countries are going to follow what?
Follow suit.
Going to follow suit. Okay? All right. So basically, now, then you have to decide this dragon, the dragon voice, is this talking about what America, because it's just said, and America is going to speak with the voice of a what?
Dragon.
Of a dragon. You're going to have to decide whether or not this prophecy is talking about the future actions of the United States of America, or you're going to have to decide whether or not this is talking about ancient Rome under the Caesars, okay?
Can it not be both?
Well, it can only be both if the ancient Roman Empire comes back into existence again. Are we to teach the people that the ancient Roman Empire with the Caesars and everything is going to come back, or are we to teach the people that America is going to practice the same principles that motivated and actuated the ancient Roman Empire? Which one?
The second.
Okay. Because the spirit of prophecy just told you that. Now notice what it says here. By such actions, keep on reading.
By such action, it will give the lie to those liberal and peaceful principles which it has put forth as the foundation of its policy. The prediction that it will speak as a dragon and exercise all the power of the first beast plainly foretells a development of the spirit of intolerance and persecution.
And now which kingdom was intolerant against Christians?
Mm-hmm.
The pagan Roman Empire. They did not tolerate, period, okay? They wanted, okay, and persecution came from the papal government. They persecuted. See, if you notice, in under pagan Rome, they did not tolerate, the state did not tolerate, not only did it not tolerate Christians, anyone who deviated from loyalty to the state, you were immediately what? Put to death, okay? There was no ifs, ands, or what? There was no appeal to it. Against the state, that was it. Now, the persecution of the papal situation basically pointed to those who did not agree with the church, okay? The pagans and the heathens. See, in Rome, you could be a pagan. If you were against the state, you were put to death, okay? That was it, just it. So basically, notice it says here that America is going to take on the attributes of what are they going to take on the attributes of what?
Of the dragon.
Which is
Papal,
complete intolerance, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And the spirit of, so this is two characteristics it's going to take on. That was manifested by what?
The spirit of intolerance and persecution, manifested by the nations, represented.
Wait a minute. Notice here, is it one
Mhm.
nation that is talking about or two nations?
Many nations.
No.
One nation.
They just told you the two.
Okay.
You see, we don't normally look at the papacy as a what?
Nation.
That's what it is. It's an earthly government. It's not a CHURC. What?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a. The papal system is an earthly government disguised as a what?
Church.
Church.
As a church, okay? Do you know that the papacy, they have their own court system, right?
Yeah.
They have their own prisons. You know they have their own prisons, right?
Yeah.
Bank and all that.
And their own bank.
They have their own banking systems. They have ambassadors. They have ambassadors that from the papal, Vatican, to all the nations around the world. You know they have their own ambassadors, right? They have their own diplomatic corps, right?
Yes.
Right. So really, it's an earthly government. It's a nation or it's a government. That's why it says the nations. So America is going to basically take on the attributes under the scarlet colored beast of the concepts and principles of pagan Rome, which is total intolerance, and under the papacy, which is persecution, okay? And they're going to do this through legislative enactment enforced by the judicial authority. And always remember, and Lois is a lawyer, she'll tell you that the police department is a enforcement arm of your judicial authority, okay? Is that not true, Sister Lois?
Sorry, I only heard part of what you said. I'm sorry. Repeat for me, please.
America is going to take on the attributes of pagan Rome.
Yes,
And the attributes of papal Rome, okay?
that's correct.
And they're going to do this through legal enactments that will be supported by the judicial authority. And in essence, the courts,
Definitely.
the
They're going
courts,
to endorse it.
the
They're going to
courts,
sanction it.
yeah, the courts will basically say these laws are acceptable. The courts will,
Valid, yes.
right. And then once the court says these laws are constitutional, however you want to put it, legal, then the enforcement branch or phase of the judicial department, which is the police, the sheriffs, the state troopers, the magistrates, then they are authorized by
Put
the
it
state
into effect.
to come and get you or to shoot you or do whatever is necessary to enforce the decrees
Yeah.
of the judicial authority, okay?
Absolutely. Imprison you, make you a slave, torture you, whatever.
Okay? So do we understand that? So then you have to decide here in Revelation, and this is where it talks about the feet, the iron mixed with the clay. In essence, it's saying that the iron is supposed to be separate. We're supposed to understand the clay and the iron is supposed to, we are not to get into those concepts and pick up those principles that we saw in pagan Rome, which is and it says America. So that's why you have to decide whether or not this is talking about pagan Rome or is it talking about the attributes that are going to be developed here in America, okay? All right. So basically in Revelation 16, it says, out of the mouth of the dragon. So that's letting you know that the dragon is going to make these laws, okay? And then it says, out of the mouth of the, what other beast? Verse,
Dragon.
no, out of the mouth of the dragon. Then you have to make a decision whether or not this is more details about it spake like a dragon, like you're reading over here in the book Great Controversy. Then you have to decide whether or not this is talking about what America is going to do, or whether or not this is talking about the dragon, which is the pagan Roman Empire being revived again. And, a lot of people do teach that that's going to happen. And then after the dragon and out of the mouth of the beast.
Mm-hmm.
Now, so then what beast is this talking about here?
Leopard.
The leopard-like beast, Catholicism, okay? Because notice in biblical history and biblical prophecy, the only time you have two nations or two powers existing in Bible prophecy at the same time is when? When in Bible prophecy do you have two?
Media Persia.
When in Bible prophecy do you have two of the world power entities coexisting at the same time? Did you have ancient Babylon and ancient Medo-Persia coexisting at the same time?
Media Persia.
Huh? Excuse me? When do you have two entities coexisting at the same time?
Faithful and pagan Rome.
Well, remember, pagan Rome ended in what? 470 what?
5, 8.
476.
Okay.
476.
When did the papacy come into dominance?
58.
538. So pagan Rome and the papacy did not coexist at the what?
Same time. Well,
The
Medes and Persia then. Medes and Persia. That's the only one that has.
The Mede Persian was one entity. There was just a group, the two groups, but their kingdom there wasn't two kingdoms called the Medes and Persian. When the Medes and Persians were ruling, did you have the Babylonian Empire coexisting with the Medes and Persian Empire?
It's in 1798, Brother Elijah.
Huh?
The year was 1798.
What happened in 1798?
That the two kingdoms they run simultaneously.
But when did America come into existence?
In 18.
No.
Yeah, but I know it's America. America is the kingdom you're talking about.
Yeah, America came in 1776, and they formed the Constitution and everything in 1780. What?
Yes, I can't remember, but I know it's America because they simultaneously have
Right. See, so America and the papacy was coexisting at the same what?
Time.
time.
Ah, this is the only time you have two entities coexisting, and it says that the secular power was taken away from the papacy, and that secular power and recognition and prominence was given to who? America, okay? Do we understand that?
Yes.
Okay, and that
Well,
happened.
could you go over that? Could you go over that?
Okay, well, let the spirit of prophecy, let the spirit of prophecy say it a little bit clearer. Go back here. Go back here to the same chapter. Early on, you have to understand. Okay, go back to page 440. But the beast with the lamb-like horns. Read what it says there, Sister Dawn.
The beast with the lamb-like horns spake as a dragon, and he exercised all the power of the first beast before him.
No, but 440,
Oh, 440.
440.1.
Sorry. Oh, 440.1. Okay. Okay. At this point, another symbol introduced from there.
Yeah,
Okay. At this point, another symbol is introduced. Says the prophet, I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb. Revelation 13:11. Both the appearance of this beast and the manner of its rise indicate that the nation which it represents. But both the appearance of this beast and the manner of its rise indicate that the nation which it represents is unlike those presented under the preceding symbols. The great kingdom that have ruled the world were presented to the prophet Daniel as beasts of prey, rising when the four winds of the heavens throw upon the great sea. Daniel 7:2. In Revelation 17, an angel explained that waters represent peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. Revelation 17:15. Winds are a symbol of strife. These four winds of heaven striving upon the great sea represent the terrible scenes of conquest and revolution by which kingdoms have attained to power. But the beast with the lamb-like horns was seen coming up out of the earth. Instead of overthrowing other powers to establish itself, this nation thus represented must rise in a territory previously unoccupied and grow up gradually and peacefully. It could not then arise among the crowded, struggling nationalities of the old world. That turbulent sea of peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues, it must be sought in the Western continent. What nation of the New World was in 1798 rising its power, giving promise of strength, greatness, and attracting the attention of the world? The application of the symbol admits no question. One nation and only one meets the specifications of this prophecy. It points unmistakably to the United States of America. Again and again, the thought, almost the exact words of the sacred writer have been unconsciously employed by the orator and the historian in describing the rise and growth of this nation. The beast was coming up out of the earth, and according to the translators, the word here rendered coming up literally signifies to grow or spring up as a plant. And as we have seen, the nation must arise in territory previously unoccupied. A prominent writer describing the rise of the United States speaks of the mystery of a coming forth from vacancy and says, like a silent seed, we grew into an empire. G.A. Tong said, the New World compared with the Old World 462. A European journal in 1850 spoke of the United States as a wonderful empire which was emerging and amid the silence of the earth daily adding to its power and pride. The Dublin nation. Edward Everett, in an oration with the Pilgrim founders of this nation, said, did they look for a retired spot, inoffensive for its obscurity and safe in its remoteness, where the little flock of linen might enjoy the freedom of conscience? Behold, the mighty regions over which in peaceful conquest they have borne the banners of the cross.
So basically, you see, in 1798, America was already rising in power because remember, The Constitution and everything was signed in 1789, remember? And this is close to 10 years later, before the secular power was taken away from the papacy. And the same influence and secular power over the world was given to the United States of America, okay?
Okay, okay.
Now you got to go back over here. Now then that's why you have to, you see the iron in the feet of clay. You have to decide whether or not this is the work that the United States is going to be doing, or work that the pagan Roman Empire is going to be doing. So since we don't have any reference in the Bible that the pagan Roman Empire, which passed off the scene in 476, the Bible, the Spirit of Prophecy, does not give us any record of it coming back into existence again. So this dragon that we see in Revelation 16 in the verse, the mouth of the dragon, has to refer to laws and legislative and judicial actions that the United States is going to take in the future, okay? And then you have another entity here called the beast, and then you have another entity here called the false what?
Prophet.
Now, what is the false prophet? What is the false prophet telling us about? Sister Carson, who would the false prophet represent?
Isn't it? This is my guess. The false
Oh,
leaders.
what chapter do we find in the Bible called the Book of Guess?
Sorry.
And what verse? In the Book of Guess, what verse are you getting ready to quote?
The Book of Guess and the chapter of
The chapter of
These are the false leaders according to, as per my interpretation of Matthew 24, the false ministers.
Oh, see now remember, in order to deal with the false prophets, you have to go back and deal with what happened with Jeremiah, because remember, when it came to the issue of Babylon, what stood in the way of the people knowing how they should interact and deal with the situation with Babylon? Remember the false prophets that stood up? Turn over there to Isaiah 9, verses 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Notice what is going to happen. Go ahead, Isaiah 9.
Anyone to read?
You go ahead.
The Lord sent a word into Jacob, and it hath lighted upon Israel. And all the people shall know, even Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, that say in the pride and stoutness of heart, the bricks are fallen down, but we will build with hewn stones, the sycamores are cut down, but we will change them into cedars.
Now,
Therefore
notice,
the Lord shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against.
now who's doing this? The bricks fell down. And what they're going to do?
They're going to build with hewn stones.
With stones. They're going to, in essence, even though it's falling down, they still say, we're going to rebuild, do what we want. Then it's sycamore, and what are they going to do?
They're going to use cedar instead.
Yeah. Keep on reading.
Therefore the Lord shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him and join his enemies together, the Syrians before and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with open mouth. For all this is his anger is not turned away.
They should devour Israel with what?
With open mouth.
What is the mouth a symbol of?
Oh, you did say.
You remember you just read it. The mouth
Oh, hold on.
Laws
prophesy.
and legislation.
Legislation and tradition.
Yeah.
That's right.
Remember, in this country, the government passed the law saying we should all take the what? The vaccine. And the church that came along, oh yeah, we got to do what? Who says? It ain't got nothing to do with no liberty of what?
Conscience.
And if you don't take the vaccine, you're not a good, not a good
Citizen.
okay?
Mm.
So laws are being passed, okay? Okay, if you say that homosexual is an evil thing, they can sue you for that. So you can't say that being a homosexual is what?
Evil.
Is evil. That's defamation, okay? You can't say abortion is a woman killing her baby, okay? It's just abortion. And a woman has a right over her what?
Body.
Or her body, okay? So notice, so in essence, God's people are not maintaining the standard, okay? Not that we are to condemn people who are homosexual, not that we're not to condemn a woman if she has an abortion, okay? You're not to be critical of her, but we are to set forth the truth and love. What does it say? Jesus always spoke the truth, but he spoke it in what?
Love.
Love, okay? Now keep on reading.
Where did we get to? Sorry, 1 second.
They devour with open mouth, okay?
Verse 12.
Thank you. So therefore the Lord shall set up the adversaries of Rezin against him and join his enemies together, the Syrians before and the Philistines behind, and they shall devour Israel with open mouth. For all this is his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. For the people turneth not unto him that smiteth them, neither do they seek the Lord of hosts. Therefore the Lord will cut off from Israel head and tail, branch and rush in one day. The ancient and honorable, he is the head, and the prophet that teacheth lies, he is the tail.
Okay, so who is, so go ahead, keep reading.
For the leaders of this people cause them to err, and they that are led of them are destroyed.
Oh, so now I wanted you made a statement, but I wanted you to, I want us to see where the scriptures support the fact that it is who that's going to lead the Adventist believers down a wrong path.
Leaders.
Okay.
Leaders.
So basically, that's where you see over in Revelation 12:4. Go to Revelation 12:4. 12:3 and 4.
And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven and did cast them to the earth.
And his tail drew a what?
The third part of the stars of heaven.
What is the tail? According to what you just read, what is a tail a symbol of? According to Isaiah, the tail is a symbol of what?
False prophet. Yeah, false leader.
Yeah.
Prophet that teaches lies.
It's a prophet that teaches lies. Okay, so it's a teacher that teaches lies, okay? Okay, now notice the teacher drew a third part of what?
Stars of heaven.
Now, according to the Bible and Bible prophecy, what are the stars of heaven? What are their symbol of?
Angels.
The angels.
Oh, okay. Well, let's go
Is
find
that
out.
to do with the third that had been cast out?
It has to do with these false teachers, the false prophets. Let's go here. You have the book Acts of Apostles to see whether or not you're correct. Let's go. Let's go over here and find out. In the book Acts of Apostles.
Revelation.
Okay, let's go to page 585.1. Let's find out whether or not you're correct when you say the stars represent the angels, okay, in Bible prophecy, okay? 585.1. Let's start there. 585.1.
I don't have that. It's not on the digital E.G.
What,
White thing.
Acts of Apostles?
What are you using, Sister Abby? Is it your
I'm using E.G. White writings.
Just go into Center World.
Go into where?
So do the Acts of Apostles PDF and then go to Center Word, it will bring it up. Just type in Acts of Apostles PDF. And then you'll see one saying Acts of the Apostles Center Word. Click onto it, it will come up.
Yeah, I can see it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a chapter called Revelation. It gives us insight in how we are to understand certain things we read in Revelation, okay? Okay, on page 585.1, it explains 7, then it explains what the angels are a symbol of that we're reading about in Revelation, okay?
Can someone else read it? Because I'm struggling to get onto the part.
I have the thick old book, the hardcover one. Is
that's
that also 585?
Yeah, 585.
Point 1. Where it talks about the faithful witness.
It says 585 in Revelation, all the books of the Bible meet and end.
Okay, I got it.
In the Revelation.
585. Got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
In the Revelation, all the books of the Bible meet and end. Here is the complement of the book of Daniel. One is a prophecy, the other is a revelation. The book that was sealed is not the revelation, but that portion of the prophecy of Daniel relating to the last days. The angel commanded, but thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book, even to the time of the end. It was God who bade the apostle record that which was to be opened before him. What thou seest, write in a book, he commanded, and send it into the 7 churches which are in Asia, unto Ephesus, and unto Smyrna, and unto Pergamos, and unto Thyatira, and unto Sardis, and unto Philadelphia, and unto Laodicea. I am he that liveth and was dead, and behold, I am alive forevermore. Write the things which thou hast seen, and the things which are, and the things which shall be hereafter. The mystery of the 7 stars which thou sawest in my right hand, and the 7 golden candlesticks. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 candlesticks which thou sawest are the 7 churches. Revelation 1:11 and 18:20. The names of the 7 churches are symbolic of the church in different periods of the Christian era. The number 7 indicates completeness and is symbolic of the fact that the messages extended to the end of time, while the symbols used reveal the condition of the church at different periods in the history of the world. Christ is spoken of as walking in the midst of the golden candlesticks. Thus it symbolizes his relation to the churches. He is in constant communication with his people. He knows their true state. He observes their order, their piety, their devotion. Although he is high priest and mediator in the sanctuary above, yet he is represented as walking up and down in the midst of his churches on the earth with untiring wakefulness and unremitting vigilance. He watches to see whether the light of any of his sentinels is burning dim or going out. If the candlesticks were left to mere human care, the flickering flame would languish and die. But he is the true watchman in the Lord's house, the true warden of the temple courts. His continued care and sustaining grace are the source of life and light. Christ is represented as holding the 7 stars in his right hand. This assures us that no church faithful to its truth, This assures us that no church faithful to its trust need fear coming to naught. For not a star that has the protection of omnipotence can be plucked out of the hand of Christ. These things said he that holdeth the 7 stars in his right hand. Revelation 2:1. These words are spoken to the teachers in the church.
Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute, sister. Go back over. We want to find out what the stars represent. What does the spirit of prophecy say? These things are spoken to who?
These things saith he that holdeth the 7 stars in his right hand. Revelation 2:1. These words are spoken to the teachers in the church, those entrusted by God with weighty responsibilities. The sweet influences that are to be abundant in the church are bound up with God's ministers who are to reveal the love of Christ. The stars of heaven are under his control. He fills them with light. He guides and directs their movements. If he did not do this, they would become fallen stars.
Okay, now remember you read in Revelation that his tail, which is the false teachings of under the Roman Empire, drew a third part of the what?
Of the stars of heaven.
And this is saying that the stars represent the teachers or the ministers in the what?
In the church.
Okay, now. This is what the spirit of prophecy says that the stars in Bible prophecy represent, okay? So during the pagan Roman Empire, who was responsible for allowing and accepting pagan customs and traditions in the church?
The leaders.
In the Seventh-day Adventist Church?
The leaders.
Okay. So do we understand? Keep reading, my sister.
So the stars of heaven are under his control. He fills them with light. He guides and directs their movements. If he did not do this, they would become fallen stars. So with his ministers, they are but instruments in his hands, and all the good they accomplish is done through his power. Through them, his light is to shine forth. The Savior is to be their efficiency. If they will look to him as he looked to the Father, they will be enabled to do his work. As they make God their dependence, he will give them his brightness to reflect to the world. Early in the history of the church, the mystery of iniquity foretold by the Apostle Paul began its baleful work. And as the false teachers concerning whom Peter had warned the believers urged their heresies, many were ensnared by false doctrines. Some faltered under trial and were tempted to give up the faith. At the time when John was given this revelation, many had lost their first love of gospel truth. But in his mercy, God did not leave the church to continue in a backslidden state. In a message of infinite tenderness, he revealed his love for them and his desire that they should make sure work for eternity. Remember, he pleaded, from whence thou art fallen, and repent and do the first works. The church was defective and in need of stern reproof and chastisement. And John was inspired to record messages of warning and reproof and entreaty to those who, losing sight of the fundamental principles of the gospel, should imperil their hope of salvation. But always the words of rebuke that God finds it necessary to send are spoken in tender love and with the promise of peace to every penitent believer. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. The Lord declares, if any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. And for those who in the midst of conflict should maintain their faith in God, the prophet was given the words of commendation and promise. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. The believers were admonished, be watchful and strengthen the things which remain that are ready to die. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown.
Okay, now if you notice here, according to the spirit of prophecy, we are to understand the stars as what? As who?
The leaders.
Yeah. The leaders who have not been looking to Christ, and they have for light, for guidance and directions. And notice, if you go back and read in chapter 2 of the book Great Controversy, chapters 1 and 2, it talks about that under persecution and under trial, many of the leaders in the church, in order to avert persecution and difficulties, encourage the people to accept pagan concepts and ideas into the what?
Church.
Into the
Elder,
church. Okay. Yes.
just have 2 points to raise quickly.
Sorry for the noise. There's some construction opposite, so it's a bit noisy. Two things. First of all, about 3 months ago, there was a lady in one of the churches in Jamaica who is a big advocate for country living and the whole lifestyle change in the church. And she has a high position, and she preached and warned the church that she spoke at that they need to prepare, leave the city, get a country home, start being self-sufficient. And after she said that, the head of the conference went to called her and wanted a meeting with her, and she refused to go. Then she was presented at another church, and actually he went with a couple of the ministers, and they took her down from the platform and said she's scaremongering, and she lost her position. That was the first situation. The second, which is crazy, the second situation occurred about a month ago, where they had youth congressery, which is kind of like like a youth day for the youth, because I know people from the country who went to it. And the same friend sent me a video, and I was very surprised because I think England's liberal. Jamaica, when I first came here, was not liberal. And what they had in the afternoon, they had like a jam session. And they were like, when you used to go to parties, and you used to do the Soul Train, basically, they did that in the church. And they were going around the church doing the Soul Train.
They had a line.
Yeah.
Oh.
Going around dancing with all the pastors there. And he was very perturbed. And I was shocked when I saw it. And he actually spoke to his pastor and said, he said, what is going on? He said, how can you bring this into the church? What is going on? So it was a Soul Train, but obviously gospel music. And his pastor said, well, he said, it's wrong. He says, well, until the president makes a comment, I have nothing to say, which just shows where the leaders are going, because they're not speaking up for principle. And I don't know if it's because they want to keep young people in the church, but you cannot adjust your standards for young people. You're meant to bring them up to the churches and God's standards. Mm-hmm. So we have to pray for our leaders, because we do have a problem, and we're not really in a time of trouble yet, and we're having these issues.
Right. So I wanted us to see, because it says that the voice of the dragon is dealing with what America will become. The beast is dealing with when the deadly wound will be healed. So, and that deadly wound and the voice of the dragon deals with apostate Protestantism. So the false prophet here that is talking about, it's not talking about the fallen Protestant churches. And the beast, the false prophet, is not talking about the Jesuits or the Catholics or the Muslims or whatever it may be. The false prophets here would be the false teachers, the false leaders within our own church, okay? And they're going to, out of necessity for preserving their power and their authority and their position, they are going to basically agree with the principles that
sell us out.
Huh?
They're going to sell us out, basically, or sell out those who are sticking.
Yeah, because see, remember, you cannot allow people to have liberty of conscience when the people are basically speaking against what you're doing and telling the people what God requires of them to do. When you do that, see, this is what got him into trouble when he was here the first time. He was setting before the people God's requirements, and God's requirement does not require that the leaders approve or disapprove of. That is not to be taken into consideration when it comes to obeying God's principles. God's principles are to be obeyed regardless of whether or not the leaders approve or whether or not they disapprove. And that was viewed by the leaders as Jesus teaching the people to rebel against him. Jesus was not teaching the people to rebel against the leadership, even though it was corrupt. His whole emphasis was teaching the people that you must obey God's requirements, and whether or not another human being's concerns or not concerns should never be the issue. So therefore, the false prophet has to be pointing to the work that we're going to see emanating from we who are supposed to be the true teachers and helping the people to understand the true principles of worship and religious liberty and civil liberties, okay? And that has to deal with, so therefore you can see where the feet of iron and clay has to do with something pertaining to we who claim to be guardians and citizens of the kingdom of grace. And you're going to find that within this kingdom of grace, or within those who profess to be followers of Christ, the same thing is going to happen to us that happened to Ellen White and the people in the 1840s. They were disfellowshipped from the churches of their day, not because they wanted to leave the churches, but the churches would not tolerate them and what they were saying and what they were teaching the people, okay? So it's not a pretty sight or understanding, knowing these things are going to happen among us, because we normally expect these things to come from, the fallen churches or from the papacy or someplace else. But God wants us to understand these principles and concepts, okay? And I think it's about 1 o'clock. It's time for us to quit.
Okay, no problem.
Any questions, comments, or summaries, or statements, or insights we'd like to bring out before we close out for this morning?
Okay, but Elijah,
We didn't touch on.
Okay.
Go ahead, Sister Abby. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. We didn't touch on the question that I asked at the beginning about the clarification of Paul's message.
Oh, Paul's message concerning the Sabbath?
Yes.
Okay, what I want you to do, I want you to read the chapter called The Literal Week. And once we
right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Huh?
Yeah, sorry, I was just confirming. Yes, that's good. I'll read it.
Right, read that chapter called The Literal Week. And after we read the principles involving the literal week, then we'll bring out the principles dealing with the Sabbath, because I wanted you to see that the concept that is in our mind that the Sabbath has always been around from eternity as we understand it. And the Spirit of Prophecy is bringing out a concept that God brought the Sabbath to the forefront in the creation of this planet. So we want to understand, well, what was he trying to convey or teach that he waited until this time to bring the Sabbath to our awareness? You understand what I'm saying? Why wasn't a Sabbath rest instituted before this planet was? You understand the line of reasoning, Sister Abby?
Yes.
So once we understand and deal with this over here, and we can pick that up when we get together the next time, which is Monday morning,
Okay.
then that'll help us to understand the line of thought and the line of reasoning that we see over there with what Paul is talking about, okay? Because if we understand that creatures did exist and creatures did worship God before God brought into existence a seventh day, what?
Sabbath.
Sabbath. what was God's purpose in bringing in the seventh day Sabbath. And I'm quite sure the other creatures, as he brought it forth, they had to say, okay, what is this all about? You know, because it was not something that existed before, okay?
Before. Mhm.
But see, once we go in it with the mindset that it has always existed, that's a wrong mindset. Because the spirit of prophecy tells us that the seventh day Sabbath was brought to the awareness of us as creatures only with the inception of this planet, okay?
Yes.
So that's the avenue of reasoning we want to go down, okay?
Okay. So Monday then, and I'll read that
Yeah,
beforehand.
I want us to read that chapter called The Literal Week, because see, I just thought, yeah, hey, the week was just a mundane thing, but evidently understanding the week, but then after you understand the week, you got to understand the days. And what lesson was he teaching about? Because see, there was no what in heaven?
Morning and evening.
Yeah, there was no days in heaven, okay? So the angels are studying out, okay, now what is this day thing? What is he doing here? Because there is no evening and morning up there. So there was no sunrise and no sunset. And a day is marked off by sunrise and what?
Sunset.
So basically, this is how we want to approach it. But I want us to read the literal week before we discuss that, okay?
Yes, I will do. Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome. Any other questions?
Brother Elijah,
Yes.
which book is that? Which book is taken from?
Sister Eve, could you share that with her where that is found? Sister Abby? That's found in Patriarchs and Prophets, and the chapter is called The Literal Week.
Thank you.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Okay. One more question, Brother Elijah. Someone asked, please expound on the feast days that were nailed to the cross.
What was the question?
Okay, the question was, it was been sent to me privately. Says, can you please expound on the feast days that were nailed to the cross?
Okay. Now, first of all, to correctly understand, let's turn over here. Let me let you read from the Spirit of Prophecy. Okay. Let's go to the book Desire of Ages. The book Desire of Ages. You have Desire of Ages? Ooh.
Yes. Is it the Passover visit?
Yeah, let's go here. I want you to.
Okay.
The Passover visit, okay?
Okay. Passover. It's chapter 8 in the book Desire of Ages.
Now, notice here, let's read this. The observance of the Passover. Let's start there. I want us to read something and understand. Just go ahead and read it. Who has it?
I have it. I can go ahead and read it.
No, let somebody else read it, Brother Vinay.
Okay, no problem, Brother.
I can read it. Just tell
Yes.
me the highlighter where you want me to start.
I want you to start at well,
Yeah.
since we have time, let's start at the beginning of the chapter, okay?
Can you hear me well? Sometimes
Oh,
I have a signal
yes.
right here.
Excuse, what chapter is it?
Chapter. So if we understand the principle that is brought forth in the Passover, then this principle is carried through with all of the feast days. Okay, go ahead. It says among the Jewish, what? Go ahead, sister.
Okay. Among the Jews, the 12th year was the dividing line between childhood and youth. On completing this year, a Hebrew boy was called a son of the law, and
Okay, now,
also
a son of the what?
of the law.
Which law is this talking about?
And also a son of God. It's called a son of the law. It's lowercase l as well.
Okay.
So it's not the commandments.
You now, Sister Veronica, you're seeing it.
Is it Pharisee law?
No, these are the ceremonial, what?
Oh.
The ceremonial laws. Remember in the book of Romans, in Romans it says, sin was in the world when there was no, but sin was not imputed. You remember what Romans says? When there was no what? Go over there to Romans a minute. Romans, I think it's Romans, the 5th chapter. Now, sister, now you're seeing. So there is a law that you became a keeper of when you were how old, Sister Veronica?
12.
12. Now you were taught the principles of these things up until your 12th year, and then when you went to the temple, you were supposed to demonstrate that you were a participant of it. Now go over here to Romans 5, verse 12, 13. Okay, let's go over here. Now read what it says here. Romans 5, verse 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Wherefore, and 16. So 12 through 16.
Yeah.
Okay. Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. For unto the law sin was in the world, but sin is not imputed when there is no law.
Now wait a minute, sister. What is this talking about right here, Sister Veronica? For until the law, sin was what?
In the world.
And this
For
is
until the law. Interesting. For until the law.
right. But in order to sin, you have to transgress the what?
Law.
So what law is this talking about? That
Wait a minute. For unto the law, sin was in the world. I believe sin is always in the world. So I don't know what the law is. Sin is always here.
now remember, in the Garden of Eden, sin was not imputed to Adam and until what was in
law. Sin was in the world. If I paraphrase this part before the colon, I thought I would think this means for up until this point was sin in the world.
right? But sin is not imputed until this law was introduced. What law was introduced after Adam and Eve sinned?
I don't know what law. I thought it was that Jesus from the beginning knew
Now,
that he would be sacrificed.
Now, the same law was nailed to the cross, okay?
That's from you telling me, but
okay.
not from what I'm reading.
What law was introduced to Adam and Eve that we saw Cain violating?
Well, that would be the 10 Commandments.
Okay, but did Cain?
Well, he didn't bring the right. He didn't bring the right sacrifice.
Oh, but the reason, but when he didn't bring the right sacrifice, he was violating what law?
Oh, that's right. The
Lord.
law.
What law was he violating?
I guess it's called the ceremonial law, but that.
Thank you. Now you got it, Veronica. So God introduced the ceremonial law. And see, one thing about the ceremonial law, remember Lucifer had told Adam and Eve, if you sin, you surely will not what?
Die.
Now, the ceremonial law was introduced so that man could see, when you disobey God, you surely what? You surely will what?
Separate yourself from God, which is closer to death.
No, he says, when you sin, you are supposed to immediately what?
Die.
Die. See, it wasn't you die 70 years later, 989. No, when you sin, immediately you were supposed to what?
Die.
In essence, that same day, remember, the Bible says, in the day ye eat of this fruit, ye shall surely what?
Die.
So God introduced a law, which is called the ceremonial law, the sacrificial service, which is sacrificial service is a part of, okay? See, the ceremonial law requires that, okay, you go have to get an animal without spot or blemish, the animal. Then the next thing it says the law required you cut the animal's throat. You couldn't cut the animal, stick it into his heart. You couldn't beat it to death. You couldn't drown it. You couldn't just run over it with a truck and bring it, put it on the altar. You had to do specific requirements, specific laws steps had to be followed, okay?
Yes.
Veronica, when you sin now, do you have to go find a lamb without blemish?
No.
When you sin now, do you have to go cut an animal's throat?
No.
When you sin now, does you have to go get a priest to catch the blood?
No.
Right. So that ceremonial law ceased to what?
Exists.
And that's
not necessary.
Well, it's not that it's not necessary. It's ceased to be a requirement for you and I. It's necessary because it teaches a lesson, okay?
Okay.
Right. So to say it's not necessary, then why would God bring it into being in the first place if it
it's
wasn't?
No longer necessary.
Right. In essence, he's saying, I want you to see the lesson, learn the lesson. Let's move on to the next phase of the what? The lesson, okay?
Okay.
So you and I were supposed to know the purpose of introducing the ceremonial law was to point me to the Lamb of God that was to be slain in order to what?
Allow my sins to be forgiven.
Thank you. It was never about the killing of the animal was to allow my sins to be forgiven. So basically here it says until, now notice it says for sin was in the world, but sin was not imputed. In essence, God did not allow the wages of sin to take hold to Adam and Eve immediately when they did what they did. Otherwise, they would cease to what?
Yes.
So God brought in the ceremonial law and showed him, whoa, and when Adam, notice who had to kill the animal, Sister Veronica?
The priest.
Adam was a priest?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I guess Adam.
Okay, well, who
But
caught?
we're talking about the ceremony, how they do it. I thought the priest killed the animal.
Now think about in the sanctuary worship service, Adam would be the transgressor or he would be the priest.
He's a transgressor.
So, and when you have a transgressor,
correct. You can't be the priest. That's right.
Oh, okay. Now you can't be jumping. You got to be, first of all, Adam had to put
you're not qualified. You're no longer qualified.
Thank you. So the transgressor needs, whenever you see a priest, Veronica, that's letting you know that there's a sin what?
If you see a priest, then the person's not supposed to be without sin, actually.
Right. So when you see a priest come on the scene, that's letting you know that you got a sin what?
A sin problem?
Right.
Okay.
So therefore, remember at the close of the Day of Atonement, Christ takes off his priestly what?
Robe.
So therefore, once that priest takes off his priestly robe, your sin problem is supposed to be what? Solved.
Upward? Yeah. Okay.
Because see, the priest ain't gonna take off his priestly robe and then put this priestly robe back on. He said, I've given you an appointed period of time for you to allow me to solve your what?
Sin
Your,
problem.
just like I gave you an appointed period of time where you were to kill the animal, because you and I have all killed animals. You've eaten a dead animal before, right, Sister Veronica?
Yes.
So the lessons we were supposed to learn, and that's why we were supposed to be involved in these things practically. But the way this Satan has set it up, you don't see. We were supposed to learn that, whoa, this animal that is dying died in whose place?
My place.
And we were supposed to learn, whoa, I should not enjoy killing and eating what?
Meat.
Animals, okay?
But yeah.
So basically, in Romans, when it says, and sin was not imputed until Adam and Eve participated in the sacrificial service, and they saw, wait a minute, what Lucifer told us is not what?
Correct.
Because didn't Adam and Eve practically watch that animal what?
Die.
Who else watched the animal die?
I would say Satan.
That's true. Who else was there besides Lucifer and his angels?
God the Father.
God the Father was there. Now he knew what death was all along. But see, Gabriel and all of the angels, they didn't know what death, because nobody had ever seen. They had never seen death. So when that first animal died, they watched that, they heard that, you know how when you cut an animal, that animal makes a noise. They heard that, their ears heard it. And then when they saw the blood gushing out of the animal's throat, they'd never seen that before. Their eyes never seen anything like this before. Then they saw the animal what? Collapse on the ground, okay? They'd never seen that before, okay? Then they saw the animal twitch. You know how the animal twitch when it's dying? You know,
I don't know, but I can imagine. Go ahead.
twitches. The animal twitches, it shakes when they die, okay?
Okay.
Then they saw the animal cease to live, okay? Sin was not imputed to when Adam saw all of that. And he realized that the wages of sin is what?
Yeah.
Whatever he saw that animal going through, that's what the wages of what was?
Sin were.
And remember that animal he had to kill, was that animal a transgressor or was that animal an innocent victim?
An innocent scapegoat.
An innocent victim of his what?
Transgression.
His transgression. And then Adam understood that, so you are willing to sacrifice an innocent victim in order to do what?
Uh-oh.
To save me, okay?
Okay.
See, when Cain refused to bring the animal sacrifice, he was basically saying, well, God, hey, look, just let bygones be bygones. I said I was sorry. That should be good enough. This whole thing about an innocent victim having to die for me, that is totally what? Unnecessary, okay?
Okay.
I think you're making a big ado about what?
Nothing.
That's what he wanted to say. There is a better way to solve the sin problem. Let's just sweep it under the rug. Let's just pretend, hey, just forget about it. And God says, no, in order to solve my sin problem, an innocent victim, which that's what Christ is, has to die for me telling a lie. An innocent victim has to die for me having lustful thoughts. An innocent victim has to, for me, when I get angry and I sin, an innocent victim has to die for my covetousness. An innocent victim has to die for my Sabbath breaking. An innocent victim has to die for me taking the name of the Lord in vain. He says, for each thing you do, it's just not, hey, I'm sorry. He said that does not suffice, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And until we understand the sacrificial services and the lesson that God was trying to teach, because remember, the concept was always an innocent victim had to die in the place of the guilty one, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So this is what Romans here is talking about. So sin, now after you see what the wages of sin is, and you see that animal die, then God said, you want to keep on with this mess? Okay, now. You understand what? Clearly that the wages of sin is what?
Death.
And you still gonna what?
Sin.
God says, well, then there's nothing I can do for you if you want to know that the wages of sin is death and you still want to do what you're doing. So in essence, every time you sin, you got no problem killing an innocent victim over and over and over and over again. What does it say? We crucify Christ, so what?
Afresh.
Oh, yeah. And in essence, we're saying, look, hey, if it means me killing him a billion times throughout the ceaseless ages of eternity so I can do what I want to do, hey, I like that method better than me giving up my what?
Sin's problem.
Thank you. So this is why the sacrificial service was introduced, or the law was introduced there. Now you go back to the Desire of Ages. He became a son of the what? You remember you were reading?
Law.
Now that's the law that he became a son of. In essence, he was supposed to study and understand and explain to people why God introduced the sacrificial what? Service, or the ceremonial laws. See, you had laws. You had the animal had to be a certain age. You just couldn't go grab any kind of animal you wanted. You had to kill the animal a certain way. The animal had to be a certain gender. All of these were prescribed laws, guidelines. It was called the ceremonial law. Okay.
Yes.
Now we go back to the Passover. It says he became a son of the.
He's got to flip the screen. Or we're reading the scripture or the
No, read
Okay.
Now remember when was he committed to the Ten Commandments, Sister
12.
No, that was the ceremonial law.
Oh, wait a
When
minute.
he was circumcised, it was supposed to be his commitment. His parents were committed to teach him to be a son of the law, Ten Commandments, okay?
Oh, wait.
Now,
Wait, hold up.
go ahead.
You just said the son of the law was referring to lowercase l, ceremonial law, and I just heard you say the exact opposite just now.
No, you
Okay.
said something about whether or not this was talking about the Ten Commandments law. Now he was committed to keeping the ten. Now if he keeping the circumcision that the child had when he was 8 days old was a sign that he was a keeper of the Ten Commandments. What? Do we have that, Sister Veronica?
No, but that's okay.
No, Veronica, no, it's not okay. That's why I want. See, you had thought that this law here was talking about the Ten Commandments, but you said, wait a minute, it cannot because it's lowercase. This is talking about the
Correct.
ceremony.
Correct.
The keeping of the Ten Commandments law was indicative of being circumcised. When a young man at 8 days old was circumcised, then that was to emphasize that he was a keeper of the Ten Commandments. Okay, you had two different things that happen in a child.
Yeah, but that scripture said, wait, where is this 12? Where is that word 12 at? Was it in the scripture or on the book? I remember reading something at 12. There it is. Among the Jews, the 12th year was the dividing line between childhood and youth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I must have gotten confused with this 12 and wait a minute. On completing this year, a Hebrew boy was called a son of the law. Right. That's okay. That's what my confusion is. If you're telling me
12 years old,
at 8 days, you get circumcised, and therefore now you are hearing to the Ten Commandments, and Spirit of Prophecy is saying at 12, you are
introduced to another law. He's introduced another law now. What law is he introduced at 12?
The ceremonial law.
Thank you. So his parents were to teach him the Ten Commandments law. That's why it says you should wear it on your forehead. You should put it on your gates when you got up. That's why the child, for the first 8 to 10 years of their life, they were not to be sent anyplace. In essence, the parents' responsibility was to teach that child through the book of nature and their interaction and teach him the word that he understood the law of God. Okay? Then when he turned 12, then the parents were to take him to the next step and introduce him to the ceremonial what?
Laws.
Mm-hmm. See, I always thought that when Mary and Joseph went up to the temple to make the sacrifices, I thought he went up there and he did it. But according to the Spirit of Prophecy, the child went up there at 12 years old and he was introduced. Now, he was taught these concepts, but when he got to the temple, he actually saw a practical demonstration of the things that he was taught. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So go ahead. Keep reading.
On completing this year, a Hebrew boy was called a son of the law and also a son of God. He was given special opportunities for religious instruction and was expected to participate in the sacred feasts and observances. It was in accordance with this custom that Jesus, in his boyhood, made the Passover visit to Jerusalem.
So now he knew that the next time he came up there, he was supposed to bring in what kind of animal?
A pure animal, I guess.
Yeah. And see, when Jesus came the next time, what did he bring, Sister Veronica?
Himself.
Did he ever bring a sacrificial animal?
Jesus?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, now, Veronica, now you can see why he got in trouble with the leaders. The leader says, wait a minute. Now, when you came up here, you saw everybody doing it. Now, why didn't you bring your sacrificial what?
Animal.
He came there. Every time he came up to the 3 feasts, he never brought a what?
Animal.
And that's why the leader says, if we leave him alone, he's going to be teaching all the other people that they don't need to bring what?
A sacrifice.
And they said, we can't have that, okay? We can't have him telling the people that they're not to bring sacrificial animals. And that's not what Jesus was trying to do. Jesus was trying to set before the religious leaders that the purpose for bringing a sacrificial animal was to admit that you had what in your life, Sister Veronica?
Sin.
And they would not accept the fact that he was what kind of a person?
Perfect.
They didn't.
Sinless.
Without
They would,
perfect, without sin.
see, you and I can say this, but they wouldn't. So all of those years, he would always come faithfully up to the temple, but he never brought a what?
A sacrifice.
So the leaders got to the point that, oh, he's just being rebellious now, okay? And that's why they said, oh, he's trying to do away with the laws of Moses, okay? Because he didn't bring a what?
Sacrifice.
Oh, yeah. All right. So then they begin to try to find things in his life to indicate that he had to be a transgressor, okay? But keep on going. Keep on reading, Sister Veronica.
It was in accordance with this custom that Jesus, in his boyhood, made the Passover visit to Jerusalem. Like all devout Israelites, Joseph and Mary went up every year to attend the Passover. And when Jesus had reached the required age, they took him with them.
See, I thought Joseph and Mary took him up there every what?
That's every year.
But it says right here that even though they went up every year, they didn't take what?
Him, because he wasn't the right age.
I didn't know this. I really didn't understand why Spirit of Prophecy said in Adventist Home and Child Guidance that our children don't need to be in a church until they're 8 or 10 years old. You remember reading that? And so evidently these principles applied even to him. They didn't take him into a structural setting, whatever like that, until he reached a certain age. And when he reached the age of 12, they took him to witness what was going on at the temple. Now keep on going.
There were 3 annual feasts: the Passover, the Pentecost, and the Feast of Tabernacles, at which all the men of Israel were commanded to appear before the Lord at Jerusalem.
So was Jesus a man or a woman?
At 12, I think you're considered a man.
And was he a man by birth, or was he a non-binary?
He's a male. He's a male.
He was a male. So when it commanded that he not only did he come to the Passover, that showed he was there. What's the next one?
Pentecost.
And he came back up there to what one?
Feast of Tabernacles.
So remember, he was commanded to be there. So throughout his life, he always obeyed the Father's what?
Commandments.
But he never did bring a what?
Animal sacrifice.
Okay, now. So he was the only one that came up there that didn't bring a what?
Animal sacrifice.
So he was standing out like a sore what?
Thumb.
Brother Elijah, sorry
Go
to
ahead.
interrupt you. I was just thinking, it's so easy for us to kind of skim over just how Jesus must have been as a child, because the idea that obviously Mary and Joseph knew who he was and his role in part, but I'm presuming that, you know, obviously people around him culturally would have been saying to him, look, you need to fix up, you need to bring this sacrifice, and he had so much knowledge and he was boldly saying no. I can't imagine what that must have been like, especially with the adults around him, having a child who was so knowledgeable about his father's will, and him just remaining steadfast in doing what he knew his father wanted him to do versus culture. And that goes back to what we were talking about before, which is cultural expectations versus God's commandments and his expectation of us.
Yes. Now keep on reading. Now Now, see, we have no idea what he went through. I mean, that's why when he went back to Nazareth, he didn't go. He didn't go back there because the people in his own hometown did not accept him, even though they knew he had lived a what before them? A sinless what?
Life.
They didn't accept it. They wouldn't accept. They said, no, there is no way. They wanted to believe, even though they had no evidence, they wanted to believe that he had to be a closet sinner. He had to have some kind of perversion in his what?
Life.
They wanted, because if they accepted the fact that he had no sin, then whoa, that's pointing to him being the who? The spotless God. And they didn't want to accept him, okay?
Okay.
Keep reading, Sister Veronica.
I think you might have moved up too much. Go down. I think we were above that line that says scattered. The line is not where it should be. The screen is not where it should be as far as where I left off. Let's see who that is. Brother Vernice or Sister Dawn? No, Brother Vernice or Sister Dawn? Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay. So we were, there we go. That's where we were. Thank you. Okay, so we read that line. Of these feasts, wait a minute. Yeah, that's right. Of these feasts, the Passover was the most largely attended. Many were present from all countries where the Jews were scattered. From every part of Palestine, the worshipers came in great numbers. The journey from Galilee occupied several days, and the travelers united in large companies for companionship and protection. The women and aged men rode upon oxen or asses over the steep and rocky roads. The stronger men and the youth journeyed on foot. The time of the Passover corresponded to the close of March or the beginning of April. And the whole land was bright with flowers and glad with the song of birds. All along the way were spots memorable in the history of Israel, and fathers and mothers recounted to their children the wonders that God had wrought for his people in their ages past. They beguiled their journey with song and music, and when at last the towers of Jerusalem came into view, every voice joined in the triumphant strain. Our feet shall stand with thy gates, O Jerusalem. Peace be within thy walls, and prosperity within thy places. The observance of the Passover began with the birth of the Hebrew nation. On the last night of their bondage in Egypt, when there appeared no token of deliverance, God commanded them to prepare for an immediate release. He had warned Pharaoh of the final judgment of the Egyptians, and he directed the Hebrews to gather their families within their own dwellings. Having sprinkled the doorposts with the blood of the slain lamb, they were to eat the lamb roasted with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And thus shall ye eat it, he said, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. At midnight, all the firstborn.
Veronica.
Yes, sir.
Do we have any record of Christ ever eating the Passover lamb?
I would say I don't know the book of Guess in the chapter of sorry.
Could Christ?
It would have to be no.
No.
Of course.
It would have to be no.
Now, this is the next problem you have. Christ did not eat the Passover what?
Lamb.
And you know, who are you? You don't even do what?
Observe the Passover.
That's what they were trying to say, because he didn't eat the Passover lamb. He didn't bring one. Everybody else is bringing the Passover. Everybody else eating, and he's sitting there not doing what?
Eating.
Because for him to eat the Passover lamb meant what, Lois?
That he had sinned. It's Veronica.
He needed salvation, because eating the Passover lamb meant you eat the Passover lamb as an indication that what you are ain't nothing, and you have to partake of him to become what? So we have no record of him ever eating what?
I don't know what the Passover is for, but I hear you. I'm learning as we speak.
Oh, keep on reading. Now, this is what, it's good that you don't know what it's about, because keep on reading.
Yeah. Let me see. Where were we? Jesus. There something about, let me see. And thus shall we eat. Okay, there it is. No, we read that. Screen died.
Veronica, you trying to share the screen?
No, somebody else is.
Who's doing that?
Only people that are hosts can share.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem, Sister Kisa.
Brother Elijah?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you remember asking me who else was in the garden with Adam and Eve? And I said, God the Father. And I think I said Satan, and you said Satan and all the angels, because they had never seen death.
What other angels were there?
Say again, sir?
What other angels were there?
I'm going to say the good angels and the bad angels. The fallen, the 1/3 fallen and the good angels.
Of course, they never seen death either. Remember, the command was the day that Adam and Eve ate of that fruit, they were supposed to what?
Die.
So remember, Lucifer has brought the charge against God. Hey, God is going to kill Adam and Eve, whatever killing is, just because they ate a piece of what?
Fruit.
So guess what? Everybody's looking on. The beings on the unfallen worlds are doing what, Sister Veronica?
Looking for the first time.
For the first time. And when
the beings on the other worlds were looking. Okay, I didn't know. Okay.
So they're looking on.
Why did you ask me? Why did you ask me then who else was there? You asked me that for a reason. Did you just ask me to realize that no one else had seen death and they all looked as the animal was killed? That's what you were telling. That's the point you were trying to make?
Yes, that was the point. They never seen.
Right. And then you also said, I'm sorry to cut you off because I want to get to this point quickly before we go back to read. And then you also said that the transgressor is not qualified to kill the animal sacrifice.
No, the transgressor is not qualified to catch it.
Your voice went out. The what?
The transgressor is not qualified to catch the blood as the priest.
To catch the blood as the priest.
Remember, whenever you have animal sacrifice, the animal's throat is cut. Somebody has to catch what, Sister Veronica?
I'm understanding the blood. Okay.
Somebody has to catch the blood.
Okay. So what's questioning in the chat is, even though and I understand. Never mind. Let me just ask the question. So Adam killed that animal in the garden, not someone
Did he
without
kill?
sin.
Did he kill it in the garden, or did he kill it outside at the door of the garden?
I don't think it matters where he killed it.
Oh, so it doesn't matter what you do with God, or is he specific about? Does he have a law?
Right. And I thought that the issue was an animal needs to be killed for your sin.
Well, see, according to the Bible, you have a law to determine where that animal has to be killed, how that animal has to be killed. Yeah,
And
the
that's
law. See,
oh,
there's a law when it comes to sacred matters. God does not leave it to your and my discretion. He
right.
outlines every detail.
Right. Yeah, I never studied these Jewish the ceremonial laws. I never studied them.
But they were not Jewish laws because,
You're
see, remember, Adam and Eve is killing this first sacrifice. Was there a Jew?
No, you're correct. They're just ceremonial laws. I was just confused as to who could kill it because
See,
of our earlier discussion and me trying to follow that logic
see,
forward.
I was like you. I thought that the ceremonial laws didn't come into play until the Jewish people. He says, Elijah, but look what Adam did. In essence, someone told Adam what animal was clean and unclean, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because Adam knew not to go get an elephant or a giraffe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he was told all these details. He was told that he must put his hand on the head of the animal.
Mm-hmm.
Veronica, where did he get the knife from to cut the animal's throat?
Somebody must have showed him how to make it.
Oh, who did that?
God
Thank you.
told him how to do it, like you said, exactly how it should be done.
So when I saw that the ceremonial law had nothing to do with the Jews, that this thing was around all along, even before there was a Jewish person, okay?
Mm-hmm.
See, and it's a part of the sanctuary service. So that's why the Spirit said, how is it, Elijah, you talk about the Day of Atonement as a part of the sanctuary service, and you don't know about the first part, what Adam and Eve. I said, but those sacrifices ain't got nothing to do with the sanctuary service. He says, excuse me? All of this has to do with the what?
Sanctuary, I think you said.
I didn't know that. I just thought that the sanctuary service started when Moses came down off the mountain and they built. He says, Elijah, no. That was a different phase of the sanctuary service, but it started all the way back because you got a sacrifice, you got a worshiper, you got a priest, you got the blood. He says, Elijah, all of this is a part of the what?
Sanctuary service.
And he said, how is it that you think you can understand one part of the sanctuary service and you don't understand this part? Not that you're to go out there and kill animals, sacrificial animals, because he said just the way Jesus understood the sanctuary service and the sacrificial service. And did he kill one animal, Sister Veronica?
Enough for their clothes, I'm not sure.
He didn't kill no sacrificial animals, Sister. Okay?
Who? Wait a minute. Maybe I'm mishearing you. You're saying who? I'm sorry. Were you just talking about Adam?
Did not tell you, Jesus, when Jesus was
no.
on this
Jesus
earth,
didn't do any of that. I'm sorry. I thought you
he
were talking
did
about
not
Adam.
kill no sacrificial
That's
animal. Okay?
right. He didn't kill any animals, period.
Now that
It's debatable.
Because a fish is an animal, okay?
Right, but did he kill it?
See, the killing of an animal was just the killing of an animal was not what there's a difference between killing an animal and killing a sacrificial animal, okay?
Yes.
So there's two different things, okay?
Right. Totally understand that.
All right, okay. So basically, see, veganism teaches you don't kill an animal, period. See, the vegans would call Jesus God a demon-possessed person because he requires us to kill an animal. But I wanted you to see that in the Bible, they had to be gathered there. Someone had to introduce the concept of the knife. Someone had to introduce the concept of cutting his throat because you couldn't drown it. You couldn't beat it in the head with a stick. You couldn't, run over it with a truck or whatever. You had to cut the throat, okay?
Mhm.
And all of these things were a part of a prescribed order, law, and what he had to do. And this is why it's called a ceremonial law, okay? Okay, now
Yes.
so basically all this is going on in the garden. Now keep on reading about the Passover, okay?
Okay. Are you sure? Because it's 1:15 and they've taken the screen down, and I know you have something at 2. Did you want to keep reading?
Yeah,
It's
well,
a-
We
this
can
was the question.
continue.
This
We
was the
can-
question.
What happened, Brother Elijah? We could continue on Monday.
All right.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Yes, we can continue on Monday, God willing.
All right. Sounds great.
Okay, no problem. So we have Sister Abby and the other sister who asked the question. So we'll continue on Monday with those two questions.
Okay.
Okay. Can anyone pray to close?
Actually, Brother Vernice, this whole reading I thought started because a sister